Hello, Oak Grove community. Welcome to week 19 of the school year. I hope that your first week back has been fairly smooth. I'm sure there have been some adjustments getting back into the routine of school and learning and schedules and all of those things. But I know it's been such a blessing for all of us teachers and staff to see your faces, what we can see as you have come back onto campus this past week. And yeah, what a blessing that the Lord gives us the opportunity to have school, to learn together in community, and to learn more about Him and how to live for His glory in relationship to one another. And this week, I thought I would share a few words and give some thoughts and questions for you regarding the new memory verse passage that we will be memorizing as a school together. That's in Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. And so to start this off, I would like to ask you a question, and let me get to my PowerPoint here. So you see the name of my talk with you this morning. The big idea is to set our hearts on things above. And so I want to begin with that question. And that is, have you ever set your heart on something? We use that expression a lot. I'm setting my heart on, usually it is something that is to come, some future event that we are looking forward to, special time with maybe a friend or a parent, a special place that we're looking forward to going. I was thinking back to when I was younger and school age as youth students, and I thought about often I would set my heart on an evening going to a baseball game with my dad and my brother. We would often watch the Baltimore Orioles play baseball. I grew up in Maryland, and going to baseball games was was always a special event. And I would set my heart on that game, that next game that we were going to, and I would think about all of the special things of going to a baseball game, getting a hot dog, going into the stadium, the seventh inning stretch, all of the exciting things that can happen during a game. And that was one very special memory recurring from my childhood. Another even more unique event that I remember setting my heart upon was going to on a cross-country trip with my mom and my grandmother to San Francisco, California, and surrounding cities. I had never been on an airplane at that point in my life. I was about 10 years old and was thoroughly setting my heart on this big trip to come. Each day leading up to it, I would be dreaming and thinking about, man, what's it going to be like to fly on an airplane, flying over the entire United States. So I was living in Maryland at that time. So from east to west, I was thinking about the different places that I would go. And here are some pictures of some of the places that I went. They're in the top left corner. That's Big Sur, California. So I'd never seen the Pacific Ocean before. Was really excited about seeing the much bigger waves in the Pacific Ocean than versus the waves in the Atlantic Ocean in the east. I was heard a lot about the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and Chinatown and the windy, the most crooked street in the world, and Fisherman's Wharf and Alcatraz, and then here on the right, going to visit the Redwood Forest. And as a child, I was a big Star Wars fan. I remember some of it was filmed at the Redwood Forest, Return of the Jedi, and these trees, which were just so incredibly massive. Pictures of the God's creation and it's the wonders of a forest. And so I really set my heart on this trip. I would think about it, I would talk about it, and I was anticipating and longing for it. And that is something that I believe that God He's created us to set our hearts on things. We were all created to have longings and yearnings for the true, the good, the beautiful, the experience of something beyond ourselves, something bigger than ourselves, to be caught in the wonder of a moment. So we have this tendency that God put there to set our hearts on something. Similarly, I want to ask you, have you ever set your mind to do something? We talk about this expression, set your mind to accomplish a certain goal, set your mind on finishing this task, set your mind on learning this particular piece of knowledge, this concept, set your mind on growth, set your mind on things that are good. When I was in high school, I set my mind on making the varsity basketball team, and that translated into, just like this player here. When I set my mind on something, when I set my mind on making that basketball team, it gave me a focus and a purpose for each day, and I developed an entire regimen and training plan of how I was going to prepare my body with the skills necessary to be accepted on the basketball team and be able to play well. And fortunately, I did make the team, and setting my mind on that goal for an extended period of time, it paid off. And again, as people, we are designed, we function best when our minds are able to focus on something, when we have a clear purpose and a goal, that really helps bring order and significance, that feeling of significance to everything that we do. And we have a reason for what we do and why we do it. And it gives energy to our day, and excitement and anticipation, similarly to when we set our hearts on something. So keeping these ideas in mind, setting our hearts on something, setting our minds on something. Now I want to look at the memory verse passage from Colossians 3 for this week. And here are the verses that you are memorizing this week. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on things that are on earth. So let's look at this passage a little bit. You guys are all learning grammar and rules of sentences, so you can see right there at the beginning, hopefully, we have this if-then type of statement. And you see that Paul says, he begins with saying, if then you have been raised with Christ. So that's the condition right there. If you have been raised with Christ. Now, what does that mean, if you have been raised with Christ? Hopefully most of you are a little bit familiar with the practice of baptism. And baptism is that significant moment, that symbolic moment as a Christian, where we are making a public, physical, outward declaration, announcement, if you will, to our family, to our friends, to our church, and others, that we are given our life to Christ. And in baptism, in most traditions, a person is standing in the water, they go under the water, there's a washing element, and then they come out. The water washes off if it's a sprinkling, but there's a symbolism of a cleansing, of a change, a shift that takes place in identity. And so if we've been raised with Christ, and that is a question I would like to pose for each of you, because I'm sure there are some of you that have not yet been raised with Christ, and you have not yet identified yourself as a Christian. You have not yet fully embraced the offer of Christ for him to be your Lord and Savior, and his offer of salvation. But being raised with Christ, that is the core of the identity for the Christian. If you are a Christian, if you have accepted Christ and repented of your sins, and you placed all of your trust in him, then you have been raised to a new life, to a new identity, to a new purpose than before Christ. There should be a difference, a turning point in what you are living for and who you are living for. So if that has taken place in your life, if you've been raised with Christ, then I got ahead of myself. Then what follows is that you are to seek the things that are above. Another translation says, set your hearts then on things that are above. Set your hearts on things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. So the next statement says, set your minds on things that are above. And that is contrasted by, it says, not on things that are on the earth. So what does that mean to seek the things or set your minds on things that are above? Set your hearts on things that are above. What does that mean, things that are above? Well, where is above? Paul says right here, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. This is in heaven. This is in eternity. This is in God's presence. So we are to set our hearts, we are to seek the things and set our minds on eternity, set our minds on the things that God sets his mind on, that he sets his heart on. So what is it that God sets his heart on? What does it mean to seek things that are eternal, that will last forever? And let me give you, I want you to think about this question, but let me give you a little analogy. That's what this picture here is for. So you can see the man checking into a hotel somewhere. And an analogy of setting our hearts on things that are eternal versus setting our hearts on things that are on this earth. Imagine this man, imagine you are him, and you are checking into a hotel, which people typically do on vacations. They're touring somewhere, they're staying somewhere temporarily. But imagine this man checks into his hotel and then he begins to purchase new furniture for that hotel room, purchases a new TV for that hotel room, starts to add decorations, maybe new pictures for the wall, and maybe some other special amenities to his room. That would be really silly. That would be kind of strange for a person to do that. Usually they don't add any purchases to a hotel room. Usually a hotel room has what they need anyways. But for them to purchase things for somewhere where they are staying and living temporarily doesn't make sense. And yet, I think there is an application for you and me when we are setting our hearts and our minds and thus our energies and our resources focused on things that are of this earth, that are temporary. So I want to encourage you, as I'm out of time here, but I want to encourage you to discuss with your parents, maybe your teachers or classmates, what does it look like to set your minds to seek the things that are above? How does that translate into everyday life? What are those things that are eternal, the things that God would value and care about? And how would that play out in your life on a day-to-day basis? Now, as we continue to go through Colossians 3, of course, Paul is going to answer those questions. He is going to unpack that in the rest of the verses that you're going to memorize following. Everything follows in sequence. And so pay careful attention to that as we go. And just want to encourage you and encourage all of us as we are beginning this 2021 year and this spring semester. May we, if we have been raised with Christ, may we set our hearts and our minds on things that are eternal. May we place our hope in those things that are going to last, that are fixed, that are guaranteed, not the things that are unpredictable and constantly changing around us in the world. Have a wonderful week, and see you next time. Bye-bye.